We again want to thank you all for coming this morning, and there are quite a few. Oh, thanks. I can get one of these. There are quite a few of us that we had this conversation started about human trafficking. How many of you were there for our Dirty Hands Summit? Raise your hand if that was you. Quite a few of us. It's been a couple months, hasn't it? Some people asked, okay, what are we doing? What are we going to do with all this knowledge about human trafficking? And so we've been trying to get together, and our schedules have just been rough. And so we finally found a time where we were able to connect and just come together and say, okay, now we can actually do something as a church. You guys ready to do something? How many of you are ready to do something?
Yeah.
Okay, that's good response. All right, so I'm excited. Sarah and I are just going to talk to you a little bit, and then we're going to give the real stars here a chance to talk.
So many churches, can you hear me? Yes? No? Oh, hey. Okay. Many churches talk about God, and they talk about changing the world. And I know as a kid that grew up in the church, I've heard my whole life, like, we're going to change the world, and it's going to be amazing. But, you know, the way we do this is really through, like, huge seminars and Bible studies and all that, which is absolutely amazing and totally valid and good. However, the big awkward elephant that happens to be in the room is that most churches that we've been parts of know very little about getting involved in their communities. And so we plan all these things for people we don't know. So very few churches, as from our experiences, like taking the time to really labor with a bunch of action groups in their community and found out what their community needs. And so one of the things we've decided to do is just take that upon ourselves to try to get involved in something that maybe isn't that comfortable for us.
How many of you have ever been to church where they talked a lot about God, but then when you ask them, okay, well, what are you doing? We sometimes go out and pass out tracts. Well, that's good. Well, how many times? Christmas, Thanksgiving, Easter. We even give them eggs. Not sure why. We do these things, and we often forget, like, we should be serving. That should be something that naturally comes from us because our hearts have been touched by God. But a lot of churches I've been to, there's an element that's missing. There's this awkward elephant in the room. I went to go, the first time I actually went to this, it was Orange County Human Trafficking Task Force. That's what it is. See how well I remember. I went there, and I was talking to some people, and I asked this one individual, I said, I'm a pastor at a church. What can we do? And I remember the girl looked at me and she did this. It's like someone, like a little kid brings something to a parent, you know, this poorly drawn picture. What is it? And they're, it's an elephant. I don't know. And so this girl looks at me and kind of smiles and she says, what can you do? Well, we don't actually work with a lot of churches, she said. And I said, why not? And she said, well, churches, the majority of them, they use these kind of functions. They use human trafficking as just a way to bring people into their church to grow numbers. They are not concerned with the actual issue. They just want to use it to get numbers. And I was like, ugh. It was ugly and it hurt. And I wanted to like scream out, no, that's not what it is. That's not how we are. But unfortunately, that's what they had learned from a lot of churches, is that their idea of helping was really, well, what's in it for me? And that's something that it just broke my heart.
And that's the big challenge we face, is to not get caught up in just mere numbers and saying like, oh, look, we're being successful because we have a lot of people here. The challenge we have is to enjoy ministry and to serve God, and not to serve him so we can get people in our pews, but because our heart is broken and aching with God every single day, seeing the injustice, seeing the needs, and seeing the challenges that are before us, and then doing something about it. So our question is, why are some churches not actively participating with God in this service? Tony?
So this is a tough question, right? And let's be honest, why are we not more interested in serving? Why are we as a church? We could point out all the other churches, because they all have their issues, I'm sure. Yep. I hope they have warts as well. But I see our church and I see us, yes, we have like a food kitchen that we give out food every once a week, but how many people are actually involved in that? I think there's like 5 people doing the brunt of that. So what are we doing during the week as service? And it's kind of painful to think about, and it's the awkward elephant in the room. If my life has been changed and transformed by God, and my heart now beats with His, my heart should be breaking when I hear about the things around me in this community. And so the number one thing we talked about was we get really focused on numbers. And I cannot tell you every single week that the service starts, I have to be honest with you, I, like some of you, do this. 9:30, if you get here at 9:30, you're doing that. You think, where is everybody? Because we've gotten this idea in our heads that numbers equal success. Jesus said, it's not about numbers. Give me 12 people who are faithful, who are being transformed by God, and I'll change the world. It wasn't about numbers, but we get really focused on that in our service. And so service should not be about numbers. It should be about my heart breaking with God's, and I can't help but want to help others.
Absolutely. And then the second thing is really piggybacking on that, and it's service again. It's the service here. So often we come and we want the magical fog machines and lights and the amazing graphics and to be in awe and have this like concert experience. But when was the last time you came to just worship and to just put your hands out and accept God? And I think that we get really lost in that, that we want everything to look pretty and to be magical, when often we just need to be still and listen to God.
Nice. Yeah, you won't see fog machines here.
Apparently we own them, though.
But we do own some.
Hey, yo.
Maybe we'll have one someday. I don't know. Another thing that we talked about, Sarah and I, was if I'm not growing in my relationship with Christ, then my heart is not going to be hurting along with His. If I'm not in this active relationship with Him, then I'm not going to be touched and hurt by what I see around me. And so it's a really interesting concept to consider. If I don't know God, then I don't know what justice and love really is. So it's kind of a fascinating thing to consider. My heart should be breaking with His because I know Him.
And the last thing we're going to mention on why churches don't often get actively involved in their communities is possibly because it's just scary. It's scary to get involved in something maybe you can't completely fix or you don't have control over, and it gets ugly sometimes, and you have to face people outside of your belief system and all of these things. And that's one thing that we've been talking about, and that's why these two people are here today, is because these are people that have dedicated time to something that's bigger than them and bigger than a religious service. And I think that that's really quite beautiful. And we've talked a lot about what happens to kids, when they don't have proper mentorship, or when they don't have a safe place to go, or when they don't have someone that's actively trying to be in their life. And these are things that we struggle with because as a church, we'd like to think that we have those things available. So we want to focus today on one more of the elephants in the room. And this is on the Dirty Hands Summit, the act of Jesus getting his hands dirty on a daily basis, reaching into the murky moments of people's lives and getting involved. And one of the things we've talked about as our key text for us is actually Micah 6:8. So I'm just going to read that to you right now. He has shown you, O mortal, what is good. And what does the Lord require of you? To act justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with your God. And this is our challenge and our call as Christians and as people that claim to have a belief in something bigger than us, to do justly.
So one of the things we noticed about our board, this group of people came up and they talked about different issues that were happening. One of the big things we noticed was that we desperately need good mentors in Orange County, people that are actually going out and interacting with the kids. What we found out was that these human traffickers, they'll wait until the system throws these kids at 17, 18 years old out. And these kids have nowhere to go. But if we have mentors in place who are actually reaching out and helping these kids grow, powerful things happen. They won't need to go to a trafficker. And so one of the people we wanted to reach out and connect with was Dale, who works very closely with an awesome organization. He's just going to give you a couple minutes of his time to explain it to you. And then hopefully we can all begin to get involved in the mentoring process. We have a video we want to show you before he begins.
Our mission is to provide a strong and enduring mentorship for every child who is in need. We believe every child should have the opportunity to succeed in life and live up to their full potential.
The last time I saw my dad was about 6 months ago. Without growing with my dad, it's really hard because I wanted a healthy dad that could help teach me to play football, and he'd teach me how to surf and teach me how to bodyboard. I didn't get to do that. I didn't know how to surf. It makes me feel sad because I never got to see my dad, and I've always wanted to see him. Every year he changes, so I don't know what he looks like anymore. And I don't know where he lives. And I want to, so I can go over to his house.
On a daily basis, we have more and more children that are coming through the door and looking for a mentor, looking for positive role models in their life.
I would like to have a big bro, so if some things get tough in my house, he could come pick me up, go somewhere.
I think my life will change a lot because I will have a lot of fun with my big brother, or do like stuff I never did with them.
You know, they don't know what to do, and these are the kids that I feel we see in society just get pushed to the side, and you know, who knows what path they go down.
It breaks my heart that there's so many kids that are on the wait list right now, because I know that they're great kids. I know that they are, and they're just looking for a friend. It's not even they're looking for a handout at all. They're just looking for somebody in their life that'll help guide them through life and just love them as much as they'll love them.
I had to pray for a long time. And once you get a big brother, you'll really like it because it's really fun, and you gotta get one that's really fun.
Like he said, we just like to be together. It doesn't matter what it is.
We just like to be together.
Exactly. We have times where we like to go and do fun stuff like kickboxing or the boomers or the paddleboarding or the bowling. Right. But then we can also have fun just hanging out at the park. We've come here a few times and
climb trees,
throw stuff at each other.
Yeah, that was fun.
The majority of our littles are already exposed to abuse, neglect, and violence. Unless a positive change takes place, these children become highly vulnerable to continuing down a destructive path. But we have the ability to change that. With the help of a mentor, virtually all of our littles graduate high school and attend college. Big Brothers and Big Sisters truly changes their lives forever.
Check. Am I on? Check, check. Cool. Well, first off, I want to thank you all for coming out this morning. My name is Dale, and I just wanted to briefly share with you what it's like to be a big brother. So I'm matched with a kid named Ray, and Ray has a pretty tough story. His dad died of brain cancer when he was just 7 years old, and it's really just his mom and his sister. There's not much family around. He does have an older half-brother who's been incarcerated on and off ever since I've known Ray. And I remember thinking back, the first time I met Ray, we're sitting at the interview table, and he's telling me that he's never had a male role model in his life ever, and he was just looking and hoping for someone like that to show up in his life. So we end up getting matched, and a couple of months go by, and I get a call from his mom. And she said, hey, Ray's graduating 8th grade. He would really like it if you could show up. Can you make it? So yeah, of course, I'll make it. So I get there, and I actually spot Ray in the crowd right away. He's a pretty tall kid. And he had all these medals around his chest. And it turns out that Ray was being honored that day for all his scholastic achievements, which really blew me away because I was like, wow, despite all the adversity that this kid faces, he still manages to overachieve in school. I mean, this kid was in college prep courses across the board in just 8th grade and had already received a scholarship. I mean, I'll tell you that today, my biggest fear and my biggest concern with Ray is that one day he will ask me for help with his homework. Seriously. But back to graduation, I end up finding his mom and I find his sister, and I sit down next to them in this empty seat. And while I'm there, his mom is like thanking me for being there, and she's like, wow, this means so much to Ray, thanks for being here. And I was thinking to myself, why is this woman thanking me? I'm not even doing anything. I just met him. All I'm doing is just sitting here in this empty seat. But you know, that was the whole point. And that's when it hit me. That seat has been empty for so many years of his life that it really was a big deal. And it really did matter to Ray to have someone there in that seat cheering him on for his 8th grade graduation. And we have a few hundred children on our waiting list, and they are waiting for people just like you to fill the empty seat in their life. These kids, they come from a demographic where only 40% of them will graduate high school. Just 40%, high school. But I am so happy to report that in 2013, all the seniors, the high school seniors that were enrolled in our program, 98% of them graduated. I know, that's awesome. And of those 98%, 83% went on to college. So what that tells me is that these kids want something better, they just don't know how to get there. So, you know, instead of spending hours of your time in front of the TV, like me sometimes, or updating your status on social media, which I know is really important, take some of that time, go out and become someone's hero. Just 2 outings a month, that's all the agency requires, just hanging out twice a month, and you'll change someone's life. And in the process, I'll tell you that your life will change too. So I hope you strongly consider it. We'll have we have a table set up in the lobby area, and you can find out what it takes to get enrolled and all that stuff. Really simple. I'll be there, so if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Please give Dale a hand. So again, this is our chance to actually have some movement here. With again, when Jesus, he touches our hearts, we can't help but move and do something. And so again, there's so many kids that need a mentor. Please, wouldn't it be beautiful if we were all involved in this mentoring process? Amen? When those human traffickers got there waiting for those kids, the kids were able to say, not interested. My life is good. I have a good future ahead of me. And the mentoring is what is going to help fill that seat, like Dale said. We have another individual who was here last time with us. You all know Lee Dundas? Hello. Yes? Good. Yeah, you should clap. We like Lee. We like them both. Lee is joining us, and she just gave a brilliant talk last time she was here with us about what's going on in human trafficking, what it is, how we can help, and she has a couple different ways in which we can get involved. Lee is an awesome individual, and we're blessed to have both Dale and Lee here. And so Lee is just going to talk to us a little bit about what human trafficking is again, kind of recap, and then bring us into some ways that we as a church can help internationally. We're here, we have Dale here, we're working locally, and Lee's going to help us find ways to do something internationally. We're going to get this. We're going to work to stop human trafficking in Orange County and internationally.
That's right.
It's awesome.
Woo. Thank you, Tony. So last time I came, I said that human trafficking was the fastest growing crime in the world. And unfortunately, in the last couple months since I was here, that actually has not changed. If anything, it's gaining speed. Do you guys want to know what the new stats are? Okay, it's horrifying, but I'm going to give them to you. UN Office on Drugs and Crime last week came out and said the new stats are that 1 out of every 3 victims of human trafficking are children. Other experts are estimating it's closer to 1 in 2. And places where we work, the really, really bad places, it's closer to 100% sometimes, unfortunately. I had told you, do you guys remember how much money was being generated from human trafficking? I think I quoted you a stat last time I was here. It was sort of a fantastic amount. I think the stat at the time was $32 billion a year, tax-free US dollars. The new stat, International Labor Organization, is it's actually closer to $150 billion, fully one-third of which is coming straight out of Asia, $52 billion a year. So if you do the math and you throw all those stats into a blender, we know 27 million people are currently enslaved. If 1 out of every 2 or 3 are kids, we're looking at somewhere between 9 and 13 million children currently enslaved. We know 79% of trafficking schemes involve sex, 80% involve females. What do you get when you shake the math out? You get 9 to 13 million, primarily little girls, primarily being sexually abused. It's a pretty horrifying stat, unfortunately. We work in Asia for a number of reasons. We work in Asia because statistically, qualitatively, quantitatively, the numbers and the stats and the stories tell us it's one of the worst areas. I'm not much into mincing words, so I'm going to give you some realities if that's okay with you. Is that okay with you? Okay, reality number 1, you can buy a child in Asia if they've never been sold before for about $300 US. If they've been sold before, it's about $30 US. Reality number 2, when I say a child, I mean a child. I don't mean somebody who's about to turn 18. I mean children, our children's ages, 7, 8, 9, 10. And the fact of the matter is there is a huge difference between a 7-year-old child who's been purchased and a 17-year-old child who's been purchased. The primary difference, guys, is that the 7-year-old doesn't have a snowball's chance of escape, of talking her sex purchaser out of his cell phone to make a cry for help. Just doesn't happen, guys. They don't have the verbal articulation, they don't have the sophistication, they don't have the courage to do it. Do 17-year-olds occasionally get across that line and talk the guy out of his cell phone and make a cry for help? Yes, they do, and I know they do because we run hotlines where we get calls like that for help. But the reason we work in Asia is because it's bad. And the reason we work with children is because they are the most defenseless. We are told in the Bible, speak up for those who cannot speak for themselves. We are told that we have to help those who are being crushed. There is no more concrete reality to those words than a 7-year-old who is stuck in a room in Cambodia with a grown man from Chicago who has closed his dentistry practice down for the specific purpose of flying to that country and staying there for a month so that he can do the things that he went there to do. So that is why we work in Asia primarily and other very dark corners of the world, and it's why we work with children. I want to switch gears for just a hot second. Did I tell you guys about Jenny last time I was here? Okay. So we work with undercover informants. We have to when we're in those countries. You just don't get a lay of the land without them. And you would think that we work primarily with men. We don't. Sometimes we work with women. We worked with a girl named Jenny. Jenny was a survivor of the slave trade, the sex slave trade. Jenny, when she was 11 years old, her parents had a fight. It's so funny because I was hearing you speak, and it doesn't really matter where you are in the world, the stories are the same. Jenny's parents in this Southeast Asian country had a fight. She left the home to cool her thoughts down. She walked down her dirt road. She sat on a bus bench. A couple minutes later, 3 guys in a pickup truck came by. They hopped out. They forcibly restrained her. They blindfolded her. They shoved a needle in her arm, and they used some sort of anesthetizing agent to knock her out. When she woke up, she was in a camp on the Burmese border. This camp was essentially a holding station for children, where men from across the world, I'm not proud to say from the US, from Dubai, from Japan, from Australia, from Africa, and everywhere in between, would come to look at children and buy them as a Texas rancher would buy heads of cattle. Pretty horrifying. And then the next horrifying thing that I've never to this day been able to make sense out of, she told me this story, FYI, about a year ago, as she brought me my printout from my computer and sat down in my chair across the table from me in an office in a high-rise in Bangkok, so I wasn't very prepared. The next thing she told me is that the guards were pretty capricious, and they did things that a cocaine dealer would never do. You never see a cocaine dealer flush his product down the toilet unless the cops are standing outside. But the guards in this camp who were in charge of guarding children between toddler and teens would occasionally just get a wild hair and go off on a tangent and start executing them. So one day, they were going down the line and doing that. And when they got to Jenny, the guard said, "On your knees." And she was like 11 or 12 at the time, right? She did the most amazing thing I think I've ever heard. She stood up. And she said, "Just shoot me," expletive, expletive. "I don't want to live like this anymore." And when the guard didn't do it, she said, "Give me the gun, I'll shoot myself." And the owner of the camp was walking by at this time, and he did something that was pretty miraculous. He said, "You, in my hut." And he got in there and he said, "I don't get it. I've been doing this for decades, and every single person always begs for their life when they have a gun at their temple. They never don't. And you didn't. Why?" He wanted to know why. And bless her ever-loving heart, she stood up and she repeated what she said the first time. "I don't want to live like this. Give me the gun." Do you know what he did? He let her go. He let her go. So that is why we work in Asia. There's 3 things we're doing in Asia right now and other places like Asia. The first thing we're doing is we're doing a rescue facility. We're doing a center for sex-trafficked children in Chiang Mai. Tentative working title of this place is called the Butterfly House. It is our logo. I don't know if you've seen our logo. It's a little girl nestled in butterfly wings. Why butterfly? Signifies change, signifies metamorphosis, signifies that you can be the most earthbound, humble creature on earth. I mean, think about the little caterpillar, right? He's like humpta-dumpta, moving along the milkweed. Nobody on earth, if they didn't know a caterpillar was going to sprout wings, would ever put good money on that happening. You'd look at the cheetah who's going 80 miles an hour and you go, yeah, he might catch air. He might get flight. You'd never think a caterpillar does, but he does. Go ahead and go to the next thing. But do you guys know that the only way they sprout wings is when they're exposed to love, to support, to light, to warmth, right? And it's no different than us. Do we ever blossom without love, support, warmth? Do the children in the program blossom without love, support, and warmth? What was my comrade here saying? He was saying they don't reach their full potential unless they have support and warmth. God's love for our neighbor, our love for our family. So yes, we want to take these girls and we want to help them get better, but we want to take them all the way. Monarch butterflies fly from Mexico to Canada, guys. I want these girls to do that. These girls got 1/1000th of the stuff that we could deliver to them. They got a couple-day program where they were taught basic things that you and I take for granted. You don't have to be enslaved. You have a right to shelter. You have self-worth. You have love, our love, God's love. They took the bit and they run with it. 2 of those girls were sold as 10-year-olds by their parents. The smiles on those girls' faces after being exposed to a little bit of light and love and warmth were unbeatable. So that's the first thing that we're going to do, is we're going to do that in Thailand. Second thing we're going to do, I'm going to give you a very depressing stat. Go ahead and flip it. Fewer than 1% of victims of trafficking are ever rescued. What's worse? Fewer than 1% of those responsible are ever brought to justice. I'm going to tell you really quickly why. The people who are charged with taking them down, with taking down the brothels and the mafia that are running the brothels, are on the payroll of the mafia. I'm not saying, it's a fine difference. I'm not saying that the mafia are paying off the cops. I'm saying they're the same person. So that is a losing game. Anybody in here going to put good money on that game changing? No. Is saving a child going to change that stat? No, unfortunately it's not. We do that because it's the right thing to do. We do it because we can. We can do it because we should. It's not going to change the game, but this next thing is going to change the game. This guy's name is Duncan Jepson. He is the head of the world's largest bank. He moves $30 trillion a day through his bank. His bank is BNY Mellon. He also writes novels. When his first book was getting made into a movie, his lead actor in India got trafficked on the set. His assistant came to him and said, "We can't find our actor, we think he's been trafficked." And Duncan said, "Like, you mean he's caught in traffic?" And they said, "No, sir, like sold into slavery trafficked." And so Duncan came back to me, and he came back to Citibank friends and HSBC bank friends and all of his friends who were lawyers for banks. And we sat down and we thought, what can we do to actually change this game? Not throw another raindrop out into a rainstorm that's not going to make a difference, but change this game. And what we discovered is it's not that hard. There are laws on the books. There are anti-money laundering laws. Let me do the math for you really quickly. When a pedophile in Chicago hops a one-way flight to Cambodia to pay $300 to the mama-san, that is dirty money. It is the product of an illegal crime or a criminal transaction. It's dirty money. It's not like clean money when she buys a Starbucks or I buy a Starbucks. And when that dirty money goes from the mamasan to the mafia and the mafia takes it to the bank, how do we know it's going to the bank? There is no mattress in this world big enough to put $150 billion a year on. When that money hits the bank, it's the crime of money laundering. You're cleaning dirty money. And not only is the mafia guilty of money laundering, but the bank has a duty to not knowingly enable people to money launder. And guess what they have to do? They have to stop and freeze the account. True story. And when they don't, the U.S. Department of Justice slaps their hand hard. 2 years ago, almost to the day, New York Times ran an article, December 10th, 2014. U.S. Department of Justice fined HSBC $2 billion for knowingly allowing its American branches to run dirty money for Iranian arms dealers and Mexican drug cartels. That is called incentive, my friends. The banks don't want to be losing that. Wachovia got hit. Standard Chartered got hit, $340 million. The time to play this game is now. We have the favor and the blessing of the banks. No other nonprofit is doing this. We are blessed to have these connections. Go ahead and flip it. That guy, we need guys like that willing to play this game. We need guys like that willing to take a video of a mama-san putting money in their bank and go, that's it. That account is closed. And when the mafia wakes up and 30 of its $150 billion is no longer accessible, that's a game changer that is going to do an end run around corrupt police departments who are only taking out less than 1% of the traffickers on this planet. Third thing that we're going to do really quickly, remember this town that had 140 brothels in it? Go ahead and flip it. Wow, it's dark. Anyway, this town runs children. Its name is Sungai Kalak. 140 brothels, no other trade in town. It gets bombed 330 times a year on average. We are going to take this town and change it. We are going to buy the brothels up. We are going to turn them into churches. It can be done. We are going to turn them into honest places of commerce. It absolutely can be done. Go ahead and flip it. It is, one more time, thank you. It is not a quick process. I am under no illusion that I'm going to walk out of here with enough support, emotional, mental, work planning, urban planning, and monetary to do this today or tomorrow. But over the next 5, 10, 15 years, I do want to do this. I want you and I want I to do this. I want our gift to this planet when we leave to have taken that horrible place, that slice of hell, and have turned it into a slice of heaven like a phoenix rising out of the ashes. I think with enough church and enough of God's love throwing ourselves at this, that is absolutely possible. The last thing that I would ask of you really quickly, and it dovetails on what everybody else has said here, prayer is great. It's fantastic. It is fantastic. It paired with action is absolutely unbeatable. I would like to take time to honor the 12-year-old who stood up to Satan. Because honestly, guys, what else is that than Satan when somebody is holding a gun to a child's head for no reason? She stood up to him, and you know what else? Nobody ever told her, good job. Way to go. You did the right thing. You did the courageous thing. You stood up to Satan. We're told, really quickly, I don't have this memorized because I am bad at memorizing. We are told in Ephesians, put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to stand against the schemes of the devil. For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the rulers, the authorities, the cosmic powers over this present darkness, against the spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. If a 12-year-old girl with nothing to her name can do what God asked us to do and stand up to Satan, I propose that we do that here today. I propose we do it in prayer at the end of this session. I propose we do it with our time. I propose we do it with our money. You are going to be handed little bitty pledge cards. And if you have a Starbucks habit of $5 a week, can we forgo the caffeine and help? If we have a movie habit, can we forgo that and help? If you can do more, please do more. The children are our future. The Bible tells us that. And logic tells us that. Let us do something with our time and money today to actually do what God wants us to do.
Amen. All right, have you been blessed today? I'm blessed to be in front of these guys, speaking with them up here in front. It's just powerful what they are doing. They're the hands of Jesus here and now. And so what we're going to do is we're going to send around the joy box as well. And in the joy box, include your tithe, but also add some offering in there so that we can help support these wonderful foundations. It is awesome what they're doing. We want to support it. Stand with us as we sing our closing song.